Howdy gamers, in this video I'm going to be going over not so much what to run on Tryndamere for his runes, but why to run the runes that are good on him. To start off, I think that it's important to note that with Tryndamere, he's really not looking for damage in his runes. If he gets it, it's a luxury, but Tryndamere is going to be killing champions just based on his items, and in most cases you're also bringing a combat summoner spell to the lane, so you pretty much always have that advantage. So to have a rune that would give you more damage, something like immediate damage, things like Conqueror, Electrocute, Hail of Blades, they all lose a lot of value for Tryndamere. Tryndamere also can't use them as well. Even something like Electrocute, it would be an E into 2 autos. It makes things very awkward. And then the burst damage that you're adding in a lot of cases, especially in a lot of top lane matchups, just doesn't add up. Since Electrocute's a one-time proc, and then Sudden Impact is based on lethality, it becomes really low value, especially in the early game for Tryndamere. So I think that Tryndamere's only viable keystones really are going to be Lethal Tempo and Fleet of Footwork. With something like Conquer, again, Tryndamere has the damage in his kit already through his abilities, through his combat summoner spell, and through his itemization. You're already going to be building just a lot of flat AD, and that's what Conquer offers. But usually it's used for champions that are going to be building up the damage and then not going to be itemizing that attack damages early. With Conquer, your basic attacks builds up attack damage, and then once fully stacked, you heal for 15% of damage you deal. So it's really just not needed for Tryndamere's kit, since he has this undying aspect as well. So the keystones that do work on him are Lethal Tempo and Fleet of Footwork. With Lethal Tempo, 1.5 seconds after you damage an enemy champion, you gain an attack speed buff that lasts for 3 seconds and then extends to 6 seconds if you hit an enemy champion. This attack speed buff scales with your levels as well, so it's really strong, obviously, for top lane since you're going to be getting the most levels in the game. With Tryndamere 2, it's also really, really good because you get so much bonus attack damage just from his kit, but then also through your early itemization, whether you're building Tiamat, whether you're building Essence Reaver, etc. So the Lethal Tempo acts as your attack speed, basically your attack speed item, but through the runes. And it continues to be useful throughout the entire game and really gives you a benefit whenever you get onto an enemy champion. So basically every single melee matchup, Lethal Tempo is going to be your best bet. With Fleet of Footwork, it's very rare that you really need to run this, even in the ranged matchups that it would be good in, because the benefit of Fleet of Footwork is that it gives you movement speed. With Fleet of Footwork, after attacking and moving, you build up energy stacks. The energy stacks empower your next auto attack, and then whenever you auto attack, you gain a little bit of movement speed, and then you heal for a little bit as well. The main benefit of Fleet of Footwork is that you can chase down ranged champions because that movement speed is going to help you stay on them. And if you're staying on them, then you can get another auto attack and then another auto attack, and then that resets your E cooldown, and then that's how you stay on top of them and then kill most ranged top lane matchups. The problem with this is that I think most ranged top lane matchups currently are going to be beating Tryndamere anyways. Any of the supports top, any of the AD carry tops, Callista, Quinn, Lucian, Teemo, etc., they're going to be beating Tryndamere anyways. So Fleet of Footwork is going to help you in ranged matchups in general, but as it currently stands in the meta, I don't like Fleet of Footwork. More so, I don't like Tryndamere as a pick, as he's just so easily countered because of that. And Fleet of Footwork doesn't really save it, unfortunately. But whenever the meta shifts or the champions change top lane, maybe Fleet of Footwork would come back into play more often. And into the weaker range top laners, Fleet of Footwork's completely fine. Champions like Kennen and whatnot, Gnar, etc. Fleet of Footwork's going to help you stay on them. But the ones that bring too much damage, the healing and movement speed isn't going to save you in most cases. But you could still run it into them. With Lethal Tempo, it's going to be your main keystone, as you want to be picking Tryndamere whenever you're playing into melee champions in the top lane. And regardless of your matchup, if you're playing into a burst champion, a tank, or a bruiser champion in the top lane, Lethal Tempo is going to be giving you about the same value, as it just gives you more auto attacks. And more auto attacks is just more damage for Tryndamere. So whenever you spin onto a target, that it's going to be procced, and then if you're staying on top of them, then it's just more damage. It's pretty useful, especially to create lethals that you otherwise wouldn't have, in combination with Ignite. So gives you a lot of laning power and gives you better all-in potential, which is a lot of what Tryndamere is like useful for. With lethal tempo, it puts you in the precision tree, and then your best option for the second row here is going to be Triumph. Overheal might seem good. With Overheal, your excess healing becomes a shield, and then the shield is built up. It might seem good as you could be healing off minions and then building up a shield before you go in, but since Tryndamere has this Undying ult, and also in the top lane, you're really zoning levels like, let's say, 3 to about 8. Champions that use Overheal best are like AD carry champions, where they're going to be trading a lot even if the enemy's in a losing lane state, so the shield can be useful regardless. But for Tryndamere, it's not so much about trading with the enemy laner, it's about having a lane advantage and then zoning them, so the shield becomes not so useful. With Triumph, takedowns restore 12% of your missing health and grant you additional 20 gold. Really, really useful with Tryndamere's kit. You go in, you ult, you survive with 1 HP, obviously, and then as you're killing them, you get the HP restore based on your missing health. So if you're just sitting on that 1 HP and then you kill them, then you get the HP regen, and then you can use your Q to be about 40% health afterwards. And then that will let you go back into a fight depending on how things are going. For the third rune here, you're really choosing over Tenacity or Alacrity. Alacrity giving you more attack speed, and then Legend Tenacity obviously giving you Tenacity. If you're playing into tank matchups in the top lane, champions like Maokai, Scion, Ornn, etc., consider taking the attack speed, or no, consider taking the Tenacity, Zac, champions like that, because the way those champions beat you is through interrupting you, and Merc Treads is already a good item against them because you're negating the damage that they deal, and then you're also getting Tenacity. Merc Treads in combination with Legend Tenacity almost entirely negates top lane matchups. Yeah, you'll be missing out on about a dagger's worth of attack speed, but you're going to be on top of these champions anyways, so it's better not to be interrupted by their CC and constantly have a damage uptime against them, and that's how you should be looking to play against them. In almost every other matchup, the attack speed's going to be better, though. Ranged matchups and burst or bruiser matchups, attack speed's going to be giving you more value, as it just gives you more auto attacks and therefore more damage output faster. For the fourth rune, you have good options in Coup de Grace. Coup de Grace giving you more damage to champions below 40% health, and then Last Stand being the best rune for Tryndamere and probably the most synergistic of any champion in the game. With Last Stand, you deal 5 to 11% increased damage to champions while you are below 60% health, max damage gained at 30%. Since Tryndamere obviously can survive with 1 HP for a very, very long time, then you're going to be getting this percentage damage increase really quickly and be able to use it against multiple enemies. So Last Stand is easily the best rune for Tryndamere. Coup de Grace isn't bad though, and it's really weird. In some lane matchups, Coup de Grace can be pretty good because it's going to be giving you more damage to champions who are below 40% health. So against dominant lane matchups in which you have Ignite over them and then they still want to fight you, maybe champions like Irelia, Coup de Grace is going to be pretty good because you're going to be able to kill the lane opponent, especially when they like handshake and all in. You're going to be able to kill them in certain situations. So it's really a higher skill rune to use, but is more focused for the laning phase versus just being generally useful, and then also an applicable rune in Last Stand regardless of the lane matchup and how the game's going. It's the strongest thing about Last Stand. It's going to be useful if you're winning, it's going to be useful if you're losing, so a really, really solid rune. For the secondary runes, Tryndamere has a lot of options. I think his best options are in the sorcery tree and in the inspiration tree. In the inspiration tree, you have this economic approach where you can get magical footwear and cosmic insight. Magical footwear saving you 300 gold and cosmic insight giving you 5% cooldown reduction. The 5% cooldown reduction in combination with Essence Reaver is going to help you obviously just spin on top of targets more. And then the free boot saving 300 gold is going to help you spike at about let's say like 1.5 items where you're having like Essence Reaver, Tiamat, and then Berserker Greaves. It's going to help you do that a lot faster coming into the mid game. So if the enemy top laner is trying to leave lane, then it's going to help you just take towers a lot faster and or just move around the map faster. With the sorcery tree, you have good options in Nimbus Cloak and Transcendence. I suppose you could run Celerity, but not so useful. With Nimbus Cloak, after you cast a summer spell, you gain a movement speed increase that lasts for 2.5 seconds and allows you to move through units. And then 15 to 35% movement speed increase depending on the cooldown of the summoner spell that you cast. If you're running a combat summoner spell, Nimbus Cloak becomes the best rune in the lane or in the game, as it helps you run down the target that you're trying to kill. So if you have Ignite, if you have Exhaust, if you have Barrier, whatever, man, it's going to help you stay on top of the target that you're trying to hit, and then therefore you're just dealing more damage. It's a really, really overpowered like top lane rune if you're running the combat summoner spell. If you're running Teleport, it could also be okay, as it will help you join fights a lot faster. With Transcendence, you gain 10% cooldown reduction whenever you reach level 10. Again, this in combination with Essence Reaver is going to help you just get your spins off more throughout a fight so you can stay onto targets. It does have the scaling aspect, but since you're in the top lane, reaching level 10 is going to be very, very quick. The Domination Tree and Resolve Tree are pretty low value for Tryndamere, as you have these like good laning and I suppose utility options in Sorcery and Inspiration. With Domination, you really don't get anything too meaningful. Something like Sudden Impact might seem good. You get Lethality and Magic Pen whenever you use a dash. Tryndamere, the Lethality isn't going to give him kills that he otherwise wouldn't get. It's also not that useful in the early game, as you have to build up the Lethality per level. And then you could have like Ultimate Hunter, but Tryndamere's ult is already on a low enough cooldown, and you're better off getting that ultimate cooldown reduction through Transcendence or Cosmic Insight, or just through itemization, as it's so expensive through the runes here. It's also based off a Bounty Hunter stack where you have to get a unique kill or assist, and in the top lane, that's pretty hard, as you're probably just killing the enemy top laner, maybe the jungler, but not so much the mid laner, ADC, and support. For the Resolve Tree, it's also, I think with the Resolve Tree, it's running it second is obviously going to help you in losing matchups, but I don't think for Tryndamere it's going to save him. Again, in his hard losing matchups against like support top laners, Quinn, Teemo, etc., like Second Wind and Revitalize is going to help you, yes, but you're losing those matchups anyways. So I think you need to pick something that's going to help offset the early CS deficit, which would be Free Boots and then Cosmic Insight. You could even run like Free Boots and not just Free Boots, Cosmic Insight. But still, it's 300 gold saved, so you can miss a lot of CS and then still kind of be even in gold. With Second Wind, after you take damage from an enemy champion, you heal for 4% of your missing health plus 6 over 10 seconds. Second Wind is only on that about 10-second cooldown, so against ranged champions, every time they damage you, if you have Doran Shield too, then you're going to be healing a lot more. If you're against worse ranged top laner players, then sure, Second Wind Revitalize can save you in the lane. But against better players, I think something like Nimbus Cloak is going to help you whenever you have the all-in advantage against them to run them down and actually kill them. And I think that's how you should be looking to play the matchup. But it is an option to run like Second Wind and then Revitalize. With Revitalize, heals and shields you cast and receive are 5% stronger and then 10% stronger while you're below 40% health. So it has pretty good synergy with the ult and whatnot to actually keep you alive against those matchups. But if those matchups are running Ignite too, all of this is kind of negated. So feels bad. And then if you're playing into melee matchups, it's kind of the same deal where it's like Bone Plating and Revitalize is okay, but you're going to win the matchups regardless usually. So the movement speed from Nimbus Cloak is probably outweighing a lot of that. And then also just the economic battle of this is probably beating it, but they're not terribly low value. And in some matchups and in some solo queue games, like yes, Revitalize is going to be giving you pretty good value. But generally, I would recommend Sorcery if you're taking Ignite, and then if you're taking TP, then Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight. So, yeah. That's my thoughts on Tryndamere runes for the shards. I forgot, it would be attack speed, attack damage, and then armor. If you were playing into an AP matchup, obviously you want the magic resist, but most matchups it's going to be the armor. And again, Fleet of Footwork is fine, but I think you only want to run it into ranged top lane matchups, and then the top lane matchups that you're going to be playing against right now that are going to be ranged champions, Fleet of Footwork probably isn't going to save you. But if you're really trying to survive them, then Fleet of Footwork, Revitalize. Yeah, and that's that. So, yep, that's my thoughts on Tryndamere runes. Everything else is kind of negligible. If you're like something like Grasp, just doesn't matter. Building up that damage is a huge trade-off to miss out on the attack speed offer from Lethal Tempo. Something like Hail of Blades is like an interesting cheese, but not so useful against a lot of top lane matchups, as it's more, you don't kill the champion in 3 auto attacks past level 3, you know? Phase Rush is okay, but other champions use this better, like Jace in the top lane, as they can function as a ranged and a melee top laner versus just Tryndamere, where you have to be on top of the enemy champion. But it could give you okay trades, and then you wouldn't have that bad of a rune page, but Tryndamere usually doesn't play out like that, as he doesn't have enough power early. And then something like Unsealed Spellbook could be okay, but again, other tank champions just use it better, and to exchange all of that for missing out on lethal tempo, I don't see it being that worth, as Tryndamere is just so auto attack based. So yeah, hope this video helped. If this video helped you, leaving a like on the video helps me. You can also subscribe. It's just League of Legends content here. And yeah, twitch.tv/SorryNelson, links in the description. Dude, Tryndamere was such a pain in my ass when I was first learning the game. So annoying.